Welcome back to my channel, Statistics for Applied Linguistics. I'm Dr. Marnie Menegra, and in this video today, we are going to look at writing the discussion section, and this is the discussion section of a thesis or a research article. Now let's reflect back on the empirical cycle of research. In other videos, we discussed the observation, induction, deduction, and testing parts of this cycle. Today, we're going to focus on evaluation. Now, remember, each part of the cycle matches up to sections of the thesis. So the observation is where we create the ideas and the research hypothesis based on information or patterns. So here we're going to look at the literature review and the theoretical review, which is going to give us the idea for the hypothesis. In the induction section, or in the induction phase, we look at the creation of the hypothesis. This would be at the end of the background information and literature review. The deductions, the hypothesis is transformed into a prediction. So how are we going to test this? And that would be looking at the method section. The testing itself, of course, remember, if it's confirmed, it's provisionally supported. So if the hypothesis is confirmed, it is not proven, just supported. And if it is not confirmed, it is rejected and then adjusted. And then that moves us to the evaluation part of the cycle, which is our discussion. This is where the results are interpreted in terms of the hypothesis. So remember, we do not interpret the results in the results section. We are interpreting the results in the discussion section. So what do we need to consider when writing the discussion section? You will link your results to your research questions and hypotheses. You will also explain whether your research questions have been answered, interpret the key findings, and explain any surprises you may have found. And one thing to keep in mind, new topics should not be introduced in this section. This is not the place to add a deeper literature review. This is not the place to add or introduce a questionnaire. This is the wrong section. Here, we're just reflecting back on what we've done and what we found. So what should be included in the discussion section? The first thing you're going to do is reiterate your research problems and explain why this study was done. This is typically in the introduction to this section. You also need to summarize your major findings. So we need a summary of what was found. Then share your interpretations, including any noticeable patterns. Then you want to explain how each research question was answered. Discuss the implications of your research and explain why it is relevant. Are there any new insights? Then also acknowledge any limitations of your study. What could you have improved? And finally, state your recommendation for further research. So the next thing you really want to consider is how are you going to organize your ideas for this chapter? And how are you going to do the layout and general format? So here's an example where we have the introduction. In the introduction, the author of this thesis drew back on the previous literature and the research problems with a summary of the findings. Notice in each of these subsections here, 4.1.1, 4.1.2, these would be the individual research questions and the hypotheses that are being answered. So he would have done that in different subsections here. Then also discussing the potential significance of the findings along with the limitations and implications for further research. Now, I have seen theses where the limitations and implications for further research were placed after the conclusion. It can be done. Please check with your thesis supervisor. I don't really like it in that order because to me, a conclusion, you're signing off on the whole thesis. So I prefer to see those in the discussion section. To me, it just makes more logical sense here. Okay, so if we look at the introduction of the discussion section, this is where you're going to reflect on the research problem. So if you notice the first sentence, as the literature and background review made clear, the CLIL methodology has been recognized for its capacity to increase learners' linguistic competence while simultaneously imparting academic subject knowledge. So we can see that there's a clear reflection as to where this thesis was going. And I'm not going to read the entire paragraph, But I will show you this part here where, and I've highlighted, while the results of the pre and post questionnaire analysis was unexpected and the null hypotheses 1 and 2 supported. Further, he states review of the results in the light of research questions stated above may shed some light on these unexpected and at times contradictory findings. So here he's explaining the surprises. So this is something that was unexpected, and he's giving a plausible explanation further. So if you do not get the results that you're expecting, you do still need to include those in the discussion section, but this is where you give an alternative explanation as to why this might have happened, or a plausible explanation as to why this might have happened. So, and then finally, once you finish the discussion section, you will write the conclusion. We will look at that in another video, but this leads us to the end of this video on how to write the discussion section. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.